Big Story by John Escott. Chapter 1. Rosie Doyle lives and works in London. She is a journalist. She writes for the Record newspaper.
I can't use this story, Rosie,
says the editor.
It's old news. Bring me something new and exciting. Bring me a big story.
He looks at her.
You're tired, Rosie. Take the afternoon off. Go and see a film or something.
A big story? That's not easy to find,
Rosie thinks.
But a film? Yes, that's a good idea.
Rosie goes to the River Thames and waits for the river bus. It's a cold February afternoon. Rosie sits on the river bus and looks out at the city. But a man and a woman in front of her on the river bus are not interested in the city's buildings. They are Americans. They talk, and Rosie begins to listen.
50,000 euros, Ms. Yardley.
The man says.
I want 50,000 euros to get it.
I don't know, Lizardo.
Ms. Yardley begins.
It's worth $500,000.
Lizardo says.
50,000 is nothing.
Rosie forgets about the film. It isn't important now. She listens carefully to the man and woman.
Pierre Valmy's chateau is in the mountains.
Lizardo says.
The job isn't easy, and it's dangerous.
All right.
Miss Yardley says.
50,000. Bring it to Venice on Thursday afternoon. 2:00 at the Rialto Bridge.
Rosie gets off the river bus. The man and the woman are in front of her. The man walks left and the woman walks right.
50,000 euros?
Rosie thinks.
Is there a story here?
Rosie goes after the woman.
Where's she going?
Rosie thinks.
And who is she?
Suddenly, the woman stops and looks back. She looks at Rosie for a second or two, then goes into a house. Rosie goes to the house.
Julia Yardley,
she reads.
She's an art dealer. Art dealers buy and sell pictures. Perhaps the man on the river bus is going to buy a picture. But why is that dangerous? Perhaps he's going to steal a picture.
Rosie thinks suddenly.
But what can I do?
Chapter 2. Two nights later, on a mountain in Switzerland, Roger Lizardo skis across the snow. It is after midnight. In front of him is a big chateau. Lizardo breaks the lock on some doors and goes into the chateau. Very quietly, he goes upstairs. He sees a door in front of him.
That's Valmy's bedroom.
Lizardo thinks. He goes into the room. Valmy is in bed, asleep.
Get up, old man.
Lizardo says.
Who are you?
Valmy asks. Valmy sees the gun in Lizardo's hand.
Get the drawing, Valmy.
Lizardo says.
How do you know about...
Valmy begins to ask.
It doesn't matter.
Lizardo says.
Get it.
Valmy gets a paper from the safe. A paper with a drawing on it. In a different room, a man gets out of bed. He is Hans, Pierre Valmy's servant.
What's that noise?
He says.
Who's talking? Is it Monsieur Valmy?
In Valmy's bedroom, Lizardo takes the paper from the old man. Then he ties him to a chair. He looks at the drawing and laughs.
€1,000,000 for this little drawing?
He says.
You art collectors are crazy.
Lizardo leaves the chateau with the drawing in his bag. Hans finds Monsieur Valmy.
Go after him!
Valmy shouts.
Take the snowmobile!
Yes, monsieur.
Says Hans.
And you call the police, monsieur.
Hans quickly gets the snowmobile and goes after Lizardo. Lizardo skis down the mountain. Lizardo sees Hans on the snowmobile behind him.
That snowmobile is fast.
He says. Chapter 3. The snowmobile is getting nearer and nearer.
What can I do?
Lizardo thinks. Lizardo sees some trees in front of him.
Wait,
He thinks.
I can get through there.
Lizardo skis between the trees, but the snowmobile can't follow him. It crashes into the trees, and Lizardo escapes. Rosie is eating breakfast in her London home. She is watching the news on TV.
The owner of the chateau is Pierre Valmy.
The newsreader says.
The Picasso drawing is worth €500,000, perhaps more.
Valmy? I know that name.
Rosie thinks.
But where? Yes! From the man on the river bus.
Pierre Valmy is talking on the TV now.
The thief has the Picasso drawing,
He says.
but what can he do with it?
I know.
Rosie says excitedly.
He can give it to Julia Yardley in Venice tomorrow at 2:00 and get €50,000. The thief is the man on the river bus. Do I go to the police?
Rosie thinks.
No. You go to the police after you get your big story, Rosie Doyle,
She says.
Perhaps you're wrong. Perhaps it's a different man. Go to Venice and see.
Rosie gets the next plane to Venice. The next day, Rosie is on a gondola in Venice. She gets off the gondola at the Rialto Bridge.
Nearly 2:00,
She thinks.
Where are they?
She sits in a cafe, has a coffee, and waits. Chapter 4. Some minutes later, Julia Yardley arrives at the Rialto Bridge.
There she is.
Rosie thinks.
But where's the man?
Lizardo isn't far away. He's watching Rosie.
Why is that woman watching Julia Yardley?
He thinks.
Does she know something?
Rosie suddenly sees the man from the river bus. He's meeting Julia Yardley on the bridge. Lizardo gives Julia Yardley a package.
Is that the Picasso drawing?
Rosie thinks. First, Lizardo leaves the bridge. Then, when Julia Yardley begins to walk away, Rosie follows her. But Lizardo looks back and sees Rosie behind Julia.
That young woman knows something.
He thinks, and he goes after her. Rosie follows Julia Yardley to a big hotel. Julia goes in, but Rosie waits in the street.
Now I can phone the police,
She says. But Lizardo is behind Rosie now, and he grabs her phone.
No, you don't.
He says.
What?
Rosie begins. From the hotel, Julia Yardley sees Roger Lizardo with Rosie in the street. Lizardo has Rosie's arm in his hand, and she can't escape.
What's happening?
she thinks.
Wait! I know that young woman's face.
She goes out of the hotel again. Now Julia is with Lizardo and Rosie. Lizardo pushes Rosie into a dark alley opposite the hotel. Julia follows them.
Do I know you?
Julia asks Rosie, and she looks into Rosie's face.
Ah, yes. Now I remember. Outside my London office on Monday. Who are you?
Ah! My arm! You're hurting me!
Rosie cries.
Okay. My name's Rosie Doyle. I'm a journalist.
What do you know?
Lizardo asks.
Be careful. I don't want to hurt you, but I have a gun in my pocket.
I know about the drawing.
Rosie says.
I know about Valmy.
How do you know?
Julia asks. Rosie tells them about the London river bus.
What can we do with her?
Julia asks Lizardo.
Leave her with me.
Lizardo says, and he smiles nastily. Chapter 5.
What are you going to do?
Julia asks. She is frightened. Lizardo is a dangerous man.
Don't ask questions.
Lizardo tells her.
Phone your collector. I want my money soon.
Tomorrow.
Julia tells him, and she goes into the hotel. Lizardo and Rosie wait in the alley. Lizardo watches one of the windows in the hotel.
What are we waiting for?
Rosie asks.
For Yardley to phone somebody.
Lizardo answers. 5 minutes later, Rosie sees Julia Yardley on a hotel balcony. Julia picks up a black book from the table and goes into her room.
She's phoning. Now we go in.
Lizardo says.
And don't run away. Remember the gun in my pocket.
Lizardo gives some money to the man at the hotel desk.
Well, Salvatore?
He says.
She is in her room.
The man at the desk tells him.
And now she's making a phone call.
Right. Who's she phoning?
Lizardo asks.
Wait a minute.
Salvatore says. And he picks up the phone on his desk and listens.
Giovanni Piano.
Salvatore says to Lizardo quietly. Lizardo smiles.
So she's selling to him. One of the most important collectors in Italy. I know him.
Salvatore puts down the phone.
She's meeting him at 4 o'clock
He tells Lizardo.
at the Cafe Antonella.
Lizardo looks at his watch.
There's not much time.
He says,
What's her room number?
301.
Salvatore says.
Giovanni Piano is crazy about collecting.
Lizardo says.
He buys important paintings and drawings. And he asks no questions.
What are you going to do?
Rosie asks. He laughs.
I'm going to get back that Picasso drawing.
He says.
Then I'm going to sell it to Giovanni Piano and get €500,000, not 50,000.
Lizardo knocks on the door of room 301. Julia opens the door and sees Lizardo's gun.
What? What are you doing?
She says. She is frightened. When they are in the room, Lizardo finds the drawing in Julia's case. He grabs it. Then he says,
You two are going to stay here. Quietly.
to Rosie, he says,
I'm going to come back for you later.
He smiles nastily again.
Tie her to the bed.
Lizardo tells Rosie. Rosie looks at his gun and ties Julia to the bed. Then Lizardo ties Rosie to a chair. After 10 minutes, he is ready to leave with the drawing.
See you later.
He tells Rosie and Julia. Chapter 6. After Lizardo leaves, Rosie tries to move her arms and legs.
Perhaps I can get out onto the balcony.
She thinks. She begins to move her chair. Rosie gets her chair out onto the balcony. There is a newspaper on the table on the balcony. Rosie tries to knock it down to the street. After some time, she knocks the newspaper off the table. It falls into the street, and some people see it. A young man sees the newspaper. Then he looks up and sees Rosie. He runs to the hotel. Some minutes later, the young man arrives at room 301 with the hotel manager. The young man unties Rosie, and the hotel manager unties Julia.
My name is Bernardo.
The young man tells Rosie.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
She says. Then she tells the hotel manager,
Phone the police. Tell them, go to the Cafe Antonella.
Rosie tells Bernardo and the hotel manager about the Picasso drawing and Giovanni piano. The hotel manager phones the police. Then he speaks to Rosie, Julia, and Bernardo.
The police are going to the Cafe Antonella,
He says,
but they want to ask Signora Yardley some questions too.
I'm going to the Cafe Antonella.
Rosie says. She looks at her watch.
But there isn't much time.
We can go in my boat, Miss.
The young man says.
My name's Rosie.
Rosie says.
Okay, let's go.
At the Cafe Antonella, Lizardo waits for Giovanni Piano. Giovanni Piano arrives some minutes later.
Who are you?
He asks Lizardo.
Where is Signora Yardley?
Forget Signora Yardley.
Lizardo tells him.
Here's the drawing.
It's beautiful.
Piano says.
I must have it.
Suddenly, the two men see a police boat on the canal. Then Lizardo sees Rosie in Bernardo's boat. He gets up quickly. More police arrive in the street. Lizardo looks at them, then at the police boat. It's very near now.
You!
A policeman shouts at Lizardo,
Stop!
but Lizardo runs to Bernardo's boat. Lizardo gets onto Bernardo's boat. He knocks Bernardo into the canal. Now, Lizardo drives the boat away, fast. Lizardo tries to get away from the police. It is not easy with gondolas and more boats on the canal. Suddenly, there's a gondola in front of them. The boat turns quickly. And Rosie falls into the water. She swims to the gondola. Now, Rosie is in the water by the gondola. Bernardo's boat crashes into a bridge and starts to sink. Lizardo falls into the water. The police get Rosie out of the water first. Then they get Lizardo.
Have you got the Picasso drawing?
Rosie asks a policeman.
Yes, thanks to you.
He says. The police take Rosie back to the hotel. Bernardo is waiting for her.
Well, I've got my big story.
Rosie says.
That's going to the editor of the Record tonight.
Are you a journalist?
Bernardo asks.
Yes.
Rosie says.
Can you stay in Venice for a day or two more, Rosie?
Bernardo asks. Rosie looks at him.
He's nice.
She thinks.
And I can send my story to the editor from here by email. Yes, perhaps Yes, I can.
she says. And she smiles.
Changing Places by Alan Hines. Chapter 1.
This is Hal Tanner. Every morning, Hal gets up at 7 o'clock. He feeds Freddie, his dog. He eats his breakfast. Then, he gets on his bicycle and goes to work. Hal works at the zoo. He watches the visitors carefully. They can look at the animals, but they can't go near them or feed them. Nothing changes from day to day.
Nothing exciting happens in my life,
thinks Hal. Sometimes, at night, Hal has a wonderful dream. He is famous, and he has an exciting life. Then, he gets up in the morning, and he is Hal again. On the weekends, Hal meets Sophie. Hal wants to marry her soon. This is Tim Hawkins. Tim is a famous actor. I know that man, people think when they see Tim. They stare at him in the street. Sometimes they run after him. Tim does not have a normal life, and he is unhappy. For his next movie, Tim wears glasses. His face is very different in glasses. It's not Tim Hawkins' face, and many people do not recognize him. Now, Tim wants to wear glasses all the time. One morning, Hal gets up.
Today isn't different from yesterday or the day before that,
Hal thinks. Then, he remembers something. In 2 days, he must marry Sophie. He feels nervous. When Hal gets to the zoo, a movie crew is there. They are making a movie with Tim Hawkins. The crew are filming. Hal watches for 2 or 3 minutes. He is very excited. Later, Hal is eating a sandwich when Tim Hawkins walks in. Tim stares at Hal, and Hal stares at Tim.
What?
Tim says,
Who are you?
I'm Hal Tanner.
Hal says. Tim looks at Hal and thinks for a minute.
I have an idea, Hal Tanner. Let's have some fun. Let's change places for the afternoon.
Hal thinks about this. Then he smiles.
All right,
he says. He gives his clothes to Tim, and he takes Tim's clothes. Chapter 2. Hal brushes his hair up. Tim brushes his hair down. Suddenly, a zoo worker comes in.
It's time to go to work, Hal.
The worker says to Tim.
This is easy,
Tim says.
Who is Hal and who is Tim? Nobody knows.
Our mothers can't say, I'm sure.
Hal laughs. Everybody is looking at Hal now. At first, he feels nervous. Soon, he is having fun. The crew loves the scene.
You're wonderful,
they tell him. Tim is happy too.
Good morning, Hal.
The zoo workers call to him. Then, Hal's boss comes to speak to him.
Tanner, you must go to the monkey house.
He tells Tim.
Can you work there for an hour, please?
Tim Hawkins lives an exciting life, Hal thinks. Tim loves Hal's job because nobody recognizes him. This is a normal life, he thinks. And these monkeys are wonderful. Later, Hal and Tim meet. They must change their clothes again. Tim has many things to do that night.
You are on a TV talk show at 5 o'clock.
Hal tells him.
Then you have a party later.
I don't want to do those things.
Tim says.
You do them. You be Tim Hawkins. You can do it. I can be Hal Tanner.
Tim says.
Let's do it for one more day.
Hal feels afraid, but he's excited too.
Okay,
he agrees.
let's do it.
Chapter 3. Hal tells Tim everything about Hal Tanner. He talks about his dog Freddie and his girlfriend Sophie. Tim tells Hal everything too. They agree to meet at an old building near Hal's house at 6 o'clock the next evening. Then they can change clothes again. For Tim, this is easy. He has many different roles in movies. Tim tricks some people, but he doesn't trick Freddie.
Who is this man?
Thinks Freddie.
I don't recognize him. He's not Hal.
Hal finds Tim's house.
This is wonderful,
he says. Hal meets Tim's girlfriend.
She is beautiful,
he thinks. He likes being a movie star. This is better than all his dreams. The next day, Hal's girlfriend comes to see Tim at the zoo.
Sophie is a very nice girl,
thinks Tim. He likes the idea of making a life with her. Being a movie actor helps Tim with Hal's job. Tim can climb very well because he makes a lot of action movies. There is an accident with the Sky Tram at the zoo, and Tim climbs up to help the people in it. In Hal's job at the zoo, he works with people. He must be a first aid worker sometimes. Now, the film crew is filming an action scene in the desert. One of the crew has an accident, and she isn't breathing.
I can help,
says Hal, running to her. The people climb down from the Sky Tram. Tim helps them.
I love climbing,
he thinks.
and I love helping people.
The woman is breathing again.
It's fun to be a movie star,
thinks Hal.
But it's wonderful to help people.
Chapter 4. It is the evening before Hal's wedding. Tim waits, but Hal never comes. Tim waits for a long time. He is getting nervous. Tim goes back to Hal's house and calls his cell phone. Hal has the cell phone with him, but there's no answer. Soon, David, Sophie's brother, comes to get Hal for the wedding practice. Tim calls Hal again. Again, there's no answer. Out in the desert, it is raining. The film crew cannot film in the rain. They all wait.
I must leave,
says Hal, but nobody is listening to him. At the wedding practice that evening, Tim must be Hal. Tim is nervous at the practice dinner. When nobody is looking, he leaves the room. Tim goes to his house. He climbs over the gate. But the police see him.
Stop!
They shout.
Oh no! I don't want anyone to see Tim Hawkins in these old clothes,
thinks Tim, and he runs away. Usually, Tim runs from people. Now, he is running from the police. Tim hides from the police. There's nothing he can do. In 24 hours, he must marry Sophie. Chapter 5. The film crew is getting ready. They are going to film a big scene.
You don't understand,
Hal says.
I must leave. It's very important.
When nobody is looking, Hal leaves. When the film crew runs after Hal, he hides. He wants to get back to Sophie. He must get back for his wedding. Hal looks at Tim's Jeep.
I can drive home across the desert in that,
thinks Hal. In the dark, Hal walks carefully across to Tim's Jeep. Nobody sees him. Hal gets in Tim's Jeep and drives away. He disappears into the night. Hal has no map. Soon, he is lost. For a long time, he drives here and there. He is looking for something that he recognizes. Then, suddenly, the Jeep stops.
Oh no! It needs gas,
Hal says. Suddenly, Tim's cell phone rings. It is Tim on the phone.
Where are you?
Tim asks Hal.
Why aren't you here?
I want to come back,
says Hal.
But I'm lost. Where am I? Where are they filming the desert scene? Do you know?
No, I don't know,
says Tim.
Someone always drives me to the filming in the morning and back home in the evening. But please, get here quickly. I like Sophie, but I don't want to marry her.
Suddenly, Tim's cell phone goes dead.
Tim? Tim?
Hal cries.
Oh, no,
thinks Hal.
Today is my wedding.
Just then, a truck arrives. There are farm workers in it. The farm workers recognize Hal, and they are excited.
Look,
they say.
It's Tim Hawkins.
For a minute or two, Hal forgets all of his problems. Chapter 6. It is the day of Hal's wedding. The wedding guests arrive. A lot of people are here for Hal and Sophie's wedding, and they are all strangers to Tim. David, Sophie's brother, comes to get him.
It's time to go,
David says. Tim and David go to the front of the church and stand there. Sophie comes in when the music begins. She is beautiful in her wedding dress. Just then, Tim says,
stop everything. This can't happen.
Everyone stares at Tim. Suddenly, they hear a truck, and then music. It's coming from outside. The doors open, and Hal comes in with his new friends. The farm workers are playing music. Sophie sees Hal. She looks at Tim, and she looks at Hal again. Then she faints. When Sophie opens her eyes again, Hal and Tim tell her everything. The two of them are talking at once.
Stop,
Sophie says. She gets up and looks at Hal and Tim.
Which one of you is Hal Tanner?
I'm Hal.
Hal says.
I'm sorry I'm late, but the desert is very, very big, and without a map,
Stop!
says Sophie, and she laughs.
You're here now. That's the important thing.
So, in the end, Sophie marries Hal, and Tim is a guest at the wedding. Later, at the party, everyone is very excited to see Tim Hawkins, the famous actor. Of course, Tim likes that. Hal is happy too, because he is with Sophie, and he can be Hal Tanner again.
Blackbeard, retold by John Escott. Chapter 1. The year is 1717. It is a bad time to be the captain of a ship in the Caribbean. Why? Because pirates are attacking any ship on the sea, and any small town near the sea too. The most famous pirate of them all is Blackbeard. He captures more than 40 ships in under 3 years. This is his story. When Queen Anne's War finishes in 1713, English sailor Edward Teach has no work. Teach is 34 years old and comes from Bristol. He is only happy when he is at sea. Soon, Teach meets Benjamin Hornigold. Hornigold is the captain of the pirate ship, the Mary Ann. He is one of the nicer Caribbean pirates. There is a story about him. One day, Hornigold's crew go aboard a ship. Do they take money? No. They take the sailors' hats. Why? Because when Hornigold's crew drink a lot, they throw their hats into the sea. Edward Teach is soon the captain of one of Hornigold's smaller ships. He is a quick thinker and a good sailor, and he quickly learns to be a pirate. In early 1717, Teach and Hornigold attack and capture 6 more small ships. The Betty is one of them. One day, the lookout on the Mary Ann calls out,
"Ship to starboard!"
The lookout is the man up on the ship's mast.
"It's a French ship! La Concorde!"
He cries. La Concorde is a very big ship.
Make the guns ready!
Captain Hornigold calls to his crew. Hornigold's 3 ships attack the French ship with their guns. Suddenly, one of La Concorde's masts comes down noisily. Some of the French crew die.
Make ready to go aboard!
Teach tells his men. Teach and his men go aboard the French ship, and the fight begins. Pirates and Frenchmen die, but Teach's men take the ship. The captain and crew of La Concorde cannot stop them. All the La Concorde crew feel very afraid. Their captain, Pierre Dosset, asks Teach,
"Do you want to kill us?"
No,
I don't.
Teach says.
But tell me something. Where's all your gold?
The captain does not answer.
Speak, man, or you die.
Teach says. He hits the French captain across the mouth.
Never,
says the captain.
do your worst.
Teach walks across to a young French boy.
You, boy,
he says to him.
What's your name?
Louis Aossa.
The boy answers.
Where's the gold, boy?
Teach asks.
Take me to it.
Louis takes Teach to the captain's cabin.
The gold's here, sir.
He says.
Thank you, boy.
Teach says, and he smiles. Chapter 2.
Your ship is my ship now.
Teach tells the captain of La Concorde.
But I don't like the French name. From today, it's the Queen Anne's Revenge.
Where are you taking us?
The French captain asks.
To the island of Beccia.
Teach tells him.
You and your crew can go ashore there. But perhaps some of your men want to stay aboard and go with me.
Teach is right. Some of the Frenchmen sail with him. Louis Arnaud is one of them.
You can have my old ship.
Teach tells the French captain. Some days later, Captain Hornigold comes aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge. You can have this ship now, Teach, Hornigold says. I'm going home to my wife. No more pirates' adventures for me. I'm tired of them.
The Queen Anne's Revenge is the best pirate ship in the Caribbean.
Teach tells his crew.
Am I right?
Aye! Blackbeard's men answer.
She's the best of
all the pirate ships.
The best of ships for the Caribbean's most famous pirate.
Teach thinks. For the next half year, Teach and his crew bring terror to ships all over the Caribbean. Soon, every ship's captain and every sailor knows about Teach. Because Teach has a long black beard, people give him a new name, Blackbeard the Pirate. He's the most frightening of all the pirates on the sea. Alexander Spotswood is the governor of Virginia. Every day, ship's captains come to him with frightening stories about Blackbeard the pirate.
We must stop this man Blackbeard,
Spotswood says angrily.
That's easy to say.
Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy tells him.
But his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, is fast. And it has 40 guns.
At the same time, Blackbeard and his men are all ashore. They are drinking happily in the pirate town of Port Royal in Jamaica.
Do I want to stop being a pirate? Go ashore, take a wife, and live to be an old man?
Thinks Blackbeard. He has 14 wives, or A woman in every town in the Caribbean, people say. But he cannot forget the easy money, the gold, and all of his exciting adventures at sea. And he cannot leave his pirate ship for a house ashore. Chapter 3. In April that year, Blackbeard captures a new ship, the Adventure, near Honduras.
You can sail with me, Harriet,
he tells the captain.
You can be one of my crew.
Captain David is afraid. He cannot say no to Blackbeard. "Aye, aye, Captain," he says. Some weeks later, they sail near the Cayman Islands.
Spanish ship to starboard, Captain!
Calls the lookout of the Queen Anne's Revenge.
To the guns, men!
Blackbeard calls.
And be ready to go aboard when I say.
The guns of the Queen Anne's Revenge and the Adventure are soon firing at the Spanish ship.
To the boats!
Blackbeard tells his men. The men put small boats into the sea and jump into them. When Blackbeard and his men go aboard the Spanish ship, the Spanish crew and their captain are ready and waiting. And they fight well. But Blackbeard has many men, and in the end, he captures the ship. With his long black beard, his pistols, and his sword, he looks a very frightening man. Soon after that, Blackbeard puts the captain and the crew of the Spanish ship ashore on a small island. Now, the Cubana is Blackbeard's ship too. In May 1718, Blackbeard and his ships are near the town of Charleston in South Carolina. "We need medicine," the ship's doctor tells Blackbeard. "Some of the crew have a fever, and there's no medicine for them on the ship."
Then let's find some,
Blackbeard says. "How?" the doctor asks. "We can't go into Charleston. We're pirates, and they can capture us and kill us there."
Then the good people of Charleston can bring the medicine to us,
Blackbeard says, and he laughs. Chapter 4. In the next week, Blackbeard and his men capture 8 ships. One of these ships is the Crowley. After a quick fight, its crew and captain surrender. There is a Charleston councillor aboard the Crowley. His young son is with him. The boy is 4 years old, and there is terror in his eyes.
"I want to go ashore now,"
the councillor tells Blackbeard.
"Do you?"
Blackbeard says. He smiles.
"Perhaps in a day or two. But first, you can write a letter to the governor of South Carolina."
"A letter?"
the councillor says.
"What do I write?"
Tell the governor, send a chest of medicine to the Queen Anne's Revenge.
Blackbeard says,
You and your son can go to Charleston when the medicine arrives, but not before then. Tell the governor, no ships can come into or leave Charleston before the medicine arrives on the Queen Anne's Revenge.
Blackbeard says, when it is ready, 2 of Blackbeard's men take the letter to the governor. For 3 days, Blackbeard waits for the medicine. The councillor is very afraid all this time.
Blackbeard can easily kill my son and me,
he thinks.
Where's the medicine? Perhaps my friend the governor doesn't want to send it.
The next day, the chest of medicine arrives. The councillor and his son go ashore. The Crowley's captain takes them in a small boat. He is very angry.
Blackbeard,
he calls up from the boat,
your last days are near. Be ready to die.
Blackbeard laughs at him. Later that year, Blackbeard gives Charles Eden some gold. Eden is the governor of North Carolina. He gives a pardon from King George to his friend Blackbeard. The next day, Blackbeard captures a French ship and kills its crew. He gives sugar from the ship to Eden.
No more pirate adventures, Blackbeard. Don't forget your pardon,
says Eden.
Oh, I'm not a pirate now,
answers Blackbeard.
This sugar is from an abandoned ship.
Eden says nothing, and he takes the sugar. Chapter 5. The Virginia governor, Alexander Spotswood, hears the news about Blackbeard's blockade of Charleston.
He can't do this to us,
Spotswood says angrily. Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the British Royal Navy is with the governor.
How can we catch Blackbeard?
Spotswood asks him.
He isn't an easy man to find,
Maynard says.
We need help. We must wait for more ships from England.
No,
Spotswood says.
We must do something now.
Soon after that, Blackbeard sails to Old Topsail Inlet in North Carolina. By now, there are 300 pirates on his 3 ships. When they arrive, the Queen Anne's Revenge and one of the smaller ships, the Cubana, go aground. Only the Adventure is all right because she is far behind them.
We must wait for the sea to come in tonight before we can move,
Blackbeard tells his crew.
Take some rum ashore in the small boats and wait there.
So the pirates from the Queen Anne's Revenge and the Cubana make their boats ready to go ashore. When the boats are ashore, Blackbeard speaks quietly with some of the pirates. That evening, Blackbeard's men drink rum and sing. Most of them drink a lot, and they go to sleep early before it's dark. But some don't drink much, and they don't go to sleep.
Come with me.
Blackbeard says quietly to these men.
We can go now.
They take 3 of the small boats out to the adventure, and they take all of the treasure with them too. In the morning, the pirates ashore look for the adventure.
Where's the ship?
They ask.
More importantly, where's Blackbeard?
And most important of all,
where's the treasure?
Cries one man. With a smaller crew and only 1 ship now, Blackbeard can move faster than before.
1 ship isn't very easy to catch.
Blackbeard tells his crew.
Does the Royal Navy want to catch us, Captain?
One of the pirates asks.
Are the stories true?
Aye, they're true.
Blackbeard answers.
The governor of Virginia wants us all dead.
Blackbeard thinks.
But can he kill me, the most famous pirate in the Caribbean? No.
Chapter 6. In December 1718, Governor Spotswood hears more news about Blackbeard.
He's at Ocracoke Inlet near North Carolina.
A Royal Navy captain tells him.
Do you hear that, Maynard?
Spotswood asks.
What can we do about it?
I can take the Jane up to North Carolina with 35 men aboard.
Maynard says.
And the Ranger can come with us, with 25 men under their captain, Mr. Hyde.
Good.
Spotswood says.
When can you leave?
In 2 days.
Maynard answers. Spotswood laughs.
Blackbeard, we've got you!
He says. On December the 21st, 1718, the ships Jane and Ranger sailed to Ocracoke Inlet. They put down their anchors. Some of Blackbeard's crew are in the town of Bath, not far away. Only 18 men are with him on his ship, the Adventure.
The Royal Navy's here, Captain.
The lookout calls.
They're waiting for morning before they attack,
Blackbeard says. Blackbeard drinks some rum.
Can this be my last night? And my last fight tomorrow?
He thinks. Next morning, the Jane and the Ranger move up the inlet.
They're coming, Captain!
The Adventure's lookout calls.
Fire!
Blackbeard calls to his men at their guns. The Adventure's guns hit the Ranger and kill some sailors. Captain Hyde is one of them. Lieutenant Maynard brings the Jane next to the Adventure.
Guns ready!
Maynard calls to his gunners.
Fire!
Look! There aren't many sailors on deck there now.
Blackbeard calls to his men.
Let's fight them!
And he jumps across to the Jane. But Maynard's men are waiting. Suddenly, they all come out from below the deck and begin to fight the pirates. Now, Blackbeard meets Maynard.
Are you ready to die, Lieutenant?
Blackbeard asks, and he laughs. Maynard does not answer, but he hits Blackbeard's arm with his sword. One of the sailors fires his pistol at Blackbeard. Suddenly, Maynard's sword breaks. Blackbeard laughs. But Maynard quickly takes his pistol and fires at the pirate captain. He hits Blackbeard. Maynard fires his pistol again, and again, and again. In the end, Blackbeard falls down onto the deck. Blackbeard dies with 5 pistol wounds and 20 sword wounds in his body.
I want his head.
Maynard says,
The head of the most famous pirate in the Caribbean.
Maynard sails back to Virginia with Blackbeard's head on the front of his ship. With Blackbeard dead, the best days of the Caribbean pirates are past. But 200 of Blackbeard's pirates escape, and nobody finds his treasure. Is this Edward Teach's revenge? Who knows? But the legend of Blackbeard stays alive to this day.
William Tell. William Tell lives near Lake Lucerne in Switzerland with his young son, Carl. Every day, in the town near Tell's house, Baron Gessler makes everyone bow to his hat. They are all afraid of him. One day, Tell and his son go to the town. They walk past the Baron's hat without bowing. Just then, Gessler arrives.
What's this?
He says,
Bow to my hat, you dogs.
Never,
says Tell.
Take him!
Shouts Gessler to his men.
For this you must die, Tell.
Cries Gessler angrily. But Tell is not afraid. Then Gessler looks at the apple in his hand and smiles.
Wait. Shoot through this apple, my friend, and you can live.
All right,
says Tell.
Take the boy to that tree and put the apple on his head.
Baron Gessler tells his men, and he laughs. Tell takes 2 arrows out and gets ready to shoot.
You can do it, Father!
Shouts Carl.
Don't be afraid!
William Tell shoots 1 arrow at his son, and it goes through the apple and into the tree.
Why have you got a new arrow ready?
Asks an angry Gessler.
To shoot you, Baron,
says Tell.
Take him to my castle.
Gessler tells his men angrily. The Baron's men take Tell to a boat on the lake.
Run, Carl!
Shouts Tell to his son. People throw things at the Baron. They aren't afraid of him anymore. When the boat is out on the lake, there's a bad storm.
Let's get Tell to help us!
Shout the Baron's men.
He's good with boats!
So Tell steers the boat, but soon there are rocks in front of them.
What are you doing?
Gessler shouts at him. Tell jumps from the boat before it hits the rocks. Suddenly, Gessler and his men are in the water.
You're a dead man, William Tell!
Shouts the Baron angrily.
And every man, woman and child in the town must die with you too!
Tell says nothing. He takes an arrow and shoots Gessler. The Baron falls into the lake and does not come up again. The end.